I heard the president screaming through a wall. Not on television, not in a speech. Through concrete and rebar, muffled but unmistakable, somewhere beneath a building I should never have been near, and I need you to understand something before I go any further. I'm not a hero. I'm not a journalist. I'm a father, 38 years old, living in Caracas with my wife and 2 kids, trying to survive like everyone else in this country. I fix air conditioners for a living. I know compressors and refrigerant lines, not state secrets. But that night, 3 months ago, I saw something that has turned my entire life into a nightmare I can't wake up from. My name doesn't matter. If I told you, I'd be dead by morning, and so would my family. But if you're watching this, it means I'm still breathing, still trying to get this story out before they find me. Because what I witnessed wasn't just about Venezuela. It was bigger. It involved names, you know. Faces you've seen on screens, and a phone call that, I swear to God, I believe came from Donald Trump himself. You need to understand what life is like here first. We live in El Valle, east side of Caracas, in a building that loses power 4, maybe 5 times a week. My son Diego's 9. My daughter Valentina just turned 6. My wife Maria works at a pharmacy that barely stocks aspirin anymore. We eat arepas when we can afford the corn meal. We stand in lines for everything: bread, milk, gasoline. The bolivar is worthless. People use dollars now, cash apps, anything that holds value longer than paper, printed by a government no one trusts. But we survive. We laugh at home. Diego plays pelota in the courtyard. Valentina sings songs she learns at school. We pretend things are normal because what else can you do? You adapt. You stop talking politics in public. You ignore the soldiers on corners. You keep your head down. Until you can't. It was a Wednesday night, late October, around 11 p.m. The power had been out since 8, which was normal, but the backup generator in our building had finally died. It was hot. God, it was suffocating. And Valentina was crying because she couldn't sleep. Maria asked me to go to the pharmacia on the corner, see if they had any baby aspirin, anything to help her rest. I kissed them both, grabbed my phone, and headed out. The streets were dark. Not unusual. But there was something else, a thickness in the air. You know that feeling before a storm, electricity, pressure, like the sky is holding its breath? It was like that. The street lights that still worked were flickering. I could hear dogs barking in the distance, nervous and sharp. And then I noticed the cars. 3 black SUVs, no plates. Windows tinted so dark they looked like holes. Parked across the intersection, near the old municipal building that's been abandoned for years, or so I thought. I slowed down. One of the SUVs had its engine running, exhaust curling in the humid air. There were men standing nearby, maybe 4 or 5, dressed in plain clothes but moving like military. Tactical boots, earpieces. One of them was speaking English. I froze. English? In Caracas? In this neighborhood? At midnight? If you don't believe me, fine, but listen. I've lived here my whole life. I know what doesn't belong. And these men didn't belong. I stayed in the shadows behind a parked car. My heart was hammering. The man speaking English was tall, white, buzz-cut, maybe American or European. He was talking into a radio. Package is secure. Awaiting transport confirmation. His accent was flat, professional, like something out of a movie. Another man, darker skin, Latin but not Venezuelan, maybe Colombian, maybe Peruvian, was checking a tablet, tapping the screen. He looked tense. Then I heard the helicopters. Low, heavy, military grade. Not the usual police choppers. These were serious. I looked up and saw 3 of them. No lights, just black silhouettes against the clouds. They were circling. One was landing behind the municipal building, rotor wash shaking the trees, sending trash skittering down the street. I should have left. I should have run home. But I didn't. I moved closer. There's a service alley that runs behind the municipal building. I used to take it as a shortcut when I was a kid. I slipped into it, keeping low, staying along the wall. I could hear voices now, louder, more urgent. Spanish, orders being barked. "Rapido! Rapido!" Someone was arguing. I heard a woman's voice, high-pitched, furious. And then I heard him. "Nicolas Maduro." I recognized the voice instantly, that deep, dramatic cadence he uses in speeches. But this wasn't a speech. He was yelling, panicked. "Esto es un error. Ustedes no saben lo que están haciendo." This is a mistake. You don't know what you're doing. I pressed myself against the wall. My hands were shaking. There was a window, small, dirty, half covered with bars. I looked through it. Inside, there was a room lit by portable floodlights. Maduro was there. I saw him. Dark suit, sweating, hands bound behind his back. Celia Flores was next to him, her face pale, lips moving fast, berating someone I couldn't see. There were soldiers, but not Venezuelan soldiers. Their uniforms had no insignia, no patches, nothing. Some wore balaclavas. Others had headsets and tactical vests covered in equipment I didn't recognize. One man had a patch ripped off his shoulder, the threads still dangling. This wasn't a coup, at least not a Venezuelan one. This was something else, something coordinated, foreign. And then I saw the phone. One of the masked men was holding a satellite phone. Bulky, military-grade, antenna extended. He was speaking into it in English, but I only caught pieces. "Affirmative. Subject confirmed, awaiting final authorization." Then he held the phone away from his face, and another man, older, gray-haired, wearing a suit under a tactical vest, took it. He listened, nodded. Then he said very clearly, "Yes, sir, understood. We proceed as planned." And here's the part I can't prove, the part that sounds insane. But I swear to you, I heard it. Through that phone, faint but distinct, I heard a voice, deep, American, confident. The cadence, the rhythm, it was unmistakable. I've heard that voice 1,000 times on television, on social media, and debates. It said, "Good. Let's finish this. They've been a problem long enough." Donald Trump. I can't prove it. I didn't record it. I didn't see his face, but I know what I heard. And the way that gray-haired man reacted. The way everyone in that room moved faster after that call told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't random. This was sanctioned. This was planned at the highest level. B-roll, satellite dish, phone close-up, shadowy figures. I backed away from the window, my legs weak. I wanted to vomit. I stumbled back down the alley, my mind racing. What the hell was happening? Was this a rescue, a capture, a rendition? And why here? Why now? I ran home. I didn't stop at the pharmacy. I burst through the door and found Maria putting Valentina to bed. She looked at me and immediately knew something was wrong. ¿Qué pasó? I couldn't speak. I just locked the door, checked the windows, and told her to keep the kids inside tomorrow. She didn't ask why. She just nodded. The next morning, nothing. No news, no reports. The government released a statement saying Maduro had attended a meeting with the regional governors. Celia was photographed at a hospital inauguration. Everything looked normal, but I knew it wasn't. I started digging, carefully. I talked to a cousin who works in telecommunications. He told me there'd been a massive spike in encrypted satellite traffic that night, routing through servers in Colombia and Miami. I spoke to a neighbor who used to be in intelligence before he fled the regime. He laughed bitterly and said, "If something like that happened, you'd never hear about it. That's how these things work." But then the rumors started. Whispers in markets, encrypted messages on Telegram channels, people talking about los archivos, the files. At first I thought it was about regime corruption, offshore accounts, the usual. But then I heard a name that stopped me cold. Epstein. Someone had leaked documents, a flash drive, a folder. I don't know the source, but copies were circulating in certain circles. Opposition groups, intelligence networks, foreign journalists. People called it the files. And they said it wasn't just financial records, it was names, powerful names. Politicians, businessmen, intelligence officers. Evidence of blackmail, coercion, leverage used across continents. And Venezuela was in there. Maduro, Flores. Connections to networks that went back years, to islands, to meetings, to things no one wanted exposed. If you don't believe me, I get it. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I started noticing things on my phone acting strange, calls dropping, apps opening on their own. A car parked outside our building 3 nights in a row, same car, different drivers. Then our neighbor, Antonio, disappeared. Just gone. His wife said he went to visit family in Maracaibo, but his car was still parked downstairs. I found a note under my door, handwritten. No signature. Stop asking questions. That's when I knew we were in danger. Maria wanted to leave the country immediately, but how? We have no money for visas, for flights. And even if we did, they'd know. They'd stop us at the airport. I felt trapped, like walls were closing in. Then I got a message. Anonymous signal account. It said, "You saw something you shouldn't have. You're not the only one. There's a safe house. If you want answers, come alone." I didn't want to go. Every instinct screamed trap. But I had to know. I had to understand what I'd stumbled into. The address was in Petare, deep in the barrios. I took a bus, switched 3 times, walked the rest. The safe house was a crumbling apartment above a bodega. Inside there were 4 other people. A journalist, a former intelligence officer, a woman who worked in the presidential palace, and a kid, maybe 20, who claimed he hacked the files. They told me everything. The operation I witnessed was a joint effort, CIA, DEA, possibly private contractors. The goal wasn't just to remove Maduro, it was to secure leverage. The files were the key. Evidence linking Venezuelan officials to international networks of money laundering, drug trafficking, and worse. But here's the twist. Some of those files implicated American officials too. People who'd worked with the regime, people who'd taken money, people who had secrets. And Trump? They said he'd been briefed, that he'd greenlit a targeted operation to extract Maduro and Flores, interrogate them, and retrieve specific intelligence before it could be destroyed. But the operation went sideways. Maduro was released after hours, a deal was made, information was traded, and now multiple factions were fighting over the files, some wanting to expose everything, others wanting to bury it forever. I was a witness, an accidental loose end. They told me to run, to leave Caracas, to get my family out, but before I could, armed men raided the safe house. We scattered. I ran through the barrios, down alleys, over rooftops. I heard gunfire behind me. I don't know if the others made it. I got home, grabbed Maria and the kids, and we fled to a friend's place in Valencia. We've been moving ever since. Different houses, different cities. Always looking over our shoulders. I don't know who to trust. I don't know how deep this goes. But I know one thing. The truth is out there. In those files, in the memories of people like me who saw too much. And if you're watching this, it means I'm still trying to tell it. Maybe I'm paranoid. Maybe I connected dots that don't exist. But I heard that voice. I saw those men. I watched the president of my country dragged through a secret operation in the middle of the night. And I know deep in my gut that what I witnessed was just one piece of something much, much bigger. So believe me or don't. Share this or don't. But if I disappear, if my family disappears, you'll know why. The files are real. The operation was real. And the people who want this buried will do anything to keep it that way. I'm just a man who fixes air conditioners. But I saw the machinery of power up close, And it's more terrifying than you can imagine.